Welcome to the latest episode of the Phoenix Conversations. I'm talking to Michael Serwa, coach to the elite and one of the UK's most successful personal coaches. Michael helps people to have it all using his signature no bullshit approach. And he says the work he does with clients is not about transformation. It's about radical transformation. He believes that anyone can achieve a 10 out of 10 in life, regardless of their background. And his role is to bring people total clarity, a strong sense of purpose, unshakable confidence, fulfilling relationships, physical vitality, financial freedom, social mastery, and the ability to lead with authority. This might sound as though Michael has been focused on this mission his entire life, but one of his superpowers is his own radical reinventions, powered by both inspiration and sometimes desperation. You're going to love hearing his Phoenix story. Michael, thank you so much for being with us today. It's great to have you here. And let's talk about your reinvention story. So you were not born in the UK, which is an interesting starting point. So I think it's important to start with you from your origins. So where were you born and what was your life as a child like?
Thank you for having Lucy, first and foremost. So I spent the first 22 years of my life in Poland. Very happy childhood. We were broke as a family, but the good news within that bad news was that everyone around us was just as broke. So as a child, I never felt like we were any different. I didn't feel bad because money was tight. But there's obviously a difference between being broke and being born in poverty. It's like I haven't experienced poverty. I've never been hungry or cold throughout my life unless it was a heavy Polish winter and I was outside, but not at home. So yeah, I had a very happy childhood because even though the money was tight, there was an abundance of love and support from both of my parents.
And what did your
both towards
parents do?
myself and my sister. Mid-level management. They don't have high education. I think we would classify it here as we don't have a class system in Poland, but lower middle class. I suppose that would be the equivalent here, right? So just like normal jobs. And then they've retired within the last 10 years because they're in the early 70s now. So my sister and I shared a little room in a post-communist block, a room the size of, well, maybe double the size of my bathroom currently in where I live right now. But again, it was normal to me. 7 years older sister sharing a little room, like two beds. We would need to fold them like every morning. We would have to like fold those beds because otherwise there'd be no room to move, right? But again, we never argued. I think one way to explain it is like how, because the age difference was so big, so she's 7 years older. When I was born, she was a girl. When I was a boy, she was a teenage. So like, you're not going to pick on a kid that's 7 years older, younger than you, right? So to this day, I'm 42, she's 49. We've never argued, like not
Amazing.
once. When we live together in that room, and so that's the environment I came from. But to my parents' despair, at 17, I decided to quit school, which is extremely, extremely uncommon in Poland, right? So like we hear the stories of successful entrepreneurs, especially the likes of Richard Branson and Alan Sugar, quitting school at 16 in the UK, but nobody thinks too much of it. But in Poland, it's so extremely uncommon. To this day, I've never met or heard about even another Polish person who didn't graduate high school at least, or become a tradesman of some sort, right? So a very unpopular decision. I was in one of the best high schools in my city, which is one of the biggest cities in Poland. And then the way I saw it, I had two options because, mind you, you need to have a high school diploma to get a job at McDonald's in Poland, right? Because the country is so, don't want to say obsessed, it's so big on education, right? Traditional education. So since I didn't have that, I had two options the way I saw it. Either be broke for the rest of my life or become a criminal. I didn't fancy any of those two options, believe it or not, right? I thought I'm a little bit too pretty to go to prison, so let me just, and I don't really like hurting anybody. So like, maybe that's not a career for me. And certainly being broke wasn't an option. So sure enough, at 22, so when Poland joined European Union and I could come here and work legally, that's exactly what I did. And because I didn't have the money, and this is 20 years ago, so pre Ryanair and EasyJet and Wizz Air, the only money I had was enough to get 2 one-way bus tickets for me and my girlfriend at the time. So we spent 27 hours on a bus to get to London in the summer of 2005. But it's very clear to me looking back that even though we were broke, I could barely speak any English. My girlfriend spoke good English. I could barely speak any English. What I had was, looking back, I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, it's clear to me that I didn't have the money. I could barely speak English, but I had something that's even more valuable, and that was the right attitude. I had a winner mindset, and I knew I'm gonna make it in London. For me, London to this day, it's like a paradise. I made a LinkedIn post, I think, not yesterday, 2 days ago, about how British people who complain about this country are, guys, like, you need to live somewhere else, somewhere poorer than the UK. I know it's not perfect, like, no country is perfect, no system is perfect, but like, nobody's gonna convince the uneducated immigrant from Poland who came here with nothing at 22, close to nothing at 22, that you can't make it in this country. If you can't make it in this country, you are the problem. That's my belief, right? And sure enough, an inspiring 6 years in fashion retail. It's never been about, I want to work in fashion, right? Like, I'll be willing to do any job, any legal job that somebody would give me, right? It just happened to be retail, and then I was there for 6 years. As assistant, I started as a sales assistant in Zara. I was very happy about it, because Zara back then, especially, even to this day, but especially 20 years ago, it was like, in Poland, that was where the rich people used to shop. It was, and still is to an extent, very expensive in Poland, because the prices in Zara are exactly the same as here, but obviously people don't make as much money as people make here. So I was like, wow, I couldn't believe how lucky I was, and I was extremely happy to start there. And sure enough, because my innate bossiness and people skills, I suppose, I learned English very quickly. So within 6 months, I could speak fluently, right? A conversational level, but like fluently, very, very fluently, right? And also, it wasn't just like, oh, because I'm so smart. It's just I very conscious that this is something I want to fix, and this is something I want to improve as quickly as possible. So I try to read in English, like on my way to work. I was with a Polish girlfriend, like I said, but obviously, when you work in a shop, you are forced to speak English when you are in England. So I haven't stayed, where I'm going with this, I haven't stayed a sales assistant for too long. I became a supervisor within 6 months, and then within 9 months in total, I became a deputy manager. And I've been told, this is 2016, I've been told that at the time, that was the fastest promotion from a sales assistant to a manager in the history of Zara UK, right? Because I was so, back to that attitude thing I was talking about, I was so on it, I was so committed to make as much money as possible, as quickly as possible, to pay off the debts that I had towards the friends that I had here, who loaned us money, me and my girlfriend, when we came here. Because, like, people say, oh, I came to this place or the other with no money. So how did you pay for food? Like, did you, like, so we didn't come with any money, but I had those two friends, this couple. So I was friends with a guy, and he was in a relationship with this girl, and he basically said, he was already in London for like a year or something, and he said, why don't you guys come in here, and then we're gonna loan you money, and then you will get jobs, and you will pay us back when you can. And this is exactly what happened, right? So I was ultra motivated to pay them off as quickly as possible. Not that I felt any pressure from them, because I didn't, but I just don't like to owe people money. And I had, therefore, more than one reason to work hard, to push myself. And to be honest, I didn't find it to be that hard, because I'm naturally someone who prefers to work than not work. I'm better at working than not working, right? So it wasn't hard, but when I found my calling in coaching at 28, I mean, that's when I felt, okay, now I'm gonna work harder than I've ever.
When you came to the UK, when you took that first, I mean, I see that as your first reinvention. You actually took the decision to reinvent your life in a different country, almost as a different person. So did you have a clear idea of what you wanted to be or do? You moved into retail because that was there and that was an opportunity. But did you see yourself, at that point as a coach or somebody who would be working in the way you are now?
No, absolutely not. So, like I said, I came here at 22, and only at 23, I got into personal development on the back of reading The Secret. So The Secret was my getaway drug. That's how I got sucked into personal development. And then sure enough, from the age of 23 to the age of 28, I was very much into personal development, reading lots of books and listening to all sorts of stuff on my way to work. But not for a second within those 5 years, I thought that I will turn this passion into career one day. right? So I didn't know what I wanted to do. All I knew was that I need to work to make money to pay the bills. And it happened to be retail, which I wasn't passionate about. I was just doing it for the money. And at the same time, I found myself spending my spare time learning about personal development and working on myself, right? Which I found extremely enjoyable. But yeah, the shift was colossal to come from Poland to London. And it's interesting because, like I said, I'm from one of the biggest cities in Poland. So I was coming to London like, yeah, I'm from a big city, going to a big city, big deal, right? And then we arrived at London Victoria Station, coach station. That's interesting, coach station, right? On the coach. And then I just thought about it now. And I remember thinking, fuck, I'm from a village comparing to I'm from a small town comparing to this, right? Because the city I'm from in Poland is called Wrocław. It's comparable in terms of size and population to Manchester.
Which is not small.
Obviously, which is not small, but comparing to London,
yeah,
London is at least 10 times bigger in terms of the size as well as the population, right? So I'm thinking, damn. And when we got a tube, not straight away, we couldn't afford a tube, just buses. But then when we got on the tube, I was like, my goodness, this tube network is just like, wow, the complexity of it, the size of it, right? So I was in awe of London, like from day one. I was in love with London. I fell in love with London from day one, and that love hasn't left me. It's been 20 years now, and I love London just as much, if not more, now. So that was definitely a big shift, right? And then arguably comparable, if not bigger shift took place, like I said, at 8, when I had my calling and I decided to become a coach.
And so how did you change? How did you change from being in retail to becoming the extraordinary high value coach that you are today? How on earth did you make that transition, that reinvention again?
Yeah, so full disclosure, unfortunately, I didn't go from retail to being a special or successful coach overnight. I was a baby coach. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, right? Until I did. So it's definitely not a case of some overnight success. There's not such thing as overnight success. It's a pipe dream. There's not such thing, right? I started very small at £20 per session. It was interesting because I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. I really believe that things happen for a reason. And I was in retail. I already knew that I wanted to be a coach, but I didn't have the money, right? Because not only I was living from month to month, I was also a few £1,000s in a credit card debt. So I thought, I know what I want to do. I'm very clear on that, but how on earth I'm going to leave the job that pays the bills and start a business? I've never run a business before. I knew I loved personal development. I knew I wanted to be a coach, but I had another girlfriend at the time and I was looking after her. She was working, but I was the main provider, if you will, with the little money that I was making. I couldn't just quit it and start my coaching business, right? And for some reason, looking back, I didn't think about doing coaching on the side. Like in my head, I'm quite, you know me, so that's not gonna surprise you. I'm quite black and white. It's hard for me to do things part-time. Like I'm either doing something or I'm not doing it. Like it's absolute in my way of thinking. I'm not sure what the phrase is. So I didn't think, looking back, like, why haven't I just started coaching on top of it's not like I was working 80-hour weeks. I wasn't an investment banker, far from it. So I had the time, but I just thought, no, I need to transition fully. Anyway, where I'm going with this is how the universe had different plans. The universe didn't want me to wait, right? Because that was the plan. So I'm going to stay in retail until I pay off my credit card debt. Then I'm going to save up enough money. That would take ages. That would never happen. So I'm going to save up enough money. Then I'm going to quit. And I'm going to have this financial buffer for let's say 6 months. And that's when I'm going to start coaching, right? But the universe, looking back, the universe was like, no, I'm going to help you. And I got redundant. They closed not just me, they closed the entire shop I was a store manager of at the time, out of nowhere, right? And it's not like you get redundant in a bank and you end up with 20K or 50K. My redundancy pay was £300, right? Because I was working for that company less than a year. It was a small store. I was a store manager. It wasn't a big deal, right? So it's not like, okay, you got redundancy, you got all this cash, right? That wasn't the case. But anyway, I thought, how interesting is that? But sure enough, I need to find another retail job because I need to make money to pay bills, right? I wanted to be a coach, but back to what I was saying before. But again, interestingly, and looking back, I'm clear that this was another universe intervention. For the first time in my very successful 6-year fashion retail career, I couldn't find another job. So I was interviewing, but things were just not. And it got to the point where I didn't have enough money anymore to keep applying for jobs, knowing that even if I get a job, it's going to take X amount of time before I get the first. So out of desperation, like a financial desperation, like the survival mechanism kicked in. Long story short, I pulled the trigger on coaching. So this is October 2011. And boy, I was motivated because I was fortunate enough to have two biggest motivators working for me at the same time. One was the inspiration. I was really inspired to make it work. But the second one, which is arguably even more powerful, it was desperation. I was desperate because, mind you, in 2011, I didn't know not a single person with money. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to borrow from someone. Oh, I can call my parents. My parents didn't have any money back then, right? And the only reason they have it now because I give it to them. So, and I had this girlfriend who was in her early 20s. I was 28. She was in early 20s. I was broke. She was broke. So I couldn't really rely on her. Anyway, long story short, I pushed myself so hard, Lucy. I really don't think there's been another coach, apart from Tony Robbins, globally, not just UK, but like obviously he's in the US, who has worked as hard as I have, not because I'm so hardworking, it's just because I was desperate. So sure enough, just to paint a picture when I talk about working hard. So for the first 2.5 years since starting coaching, before I made it, got to the 6-figure level, I've worked 7 days a week. And when I say 7 days a week, I mean every day, right? Client-facing work. Not that, I would just do a little bit of this and that over the weekend. No, client-facing work, 7 days a week. No holidays, no dating. So I broke up with that girlfriend. We just, went separate ways. And then I strategically decided not to date because I didn't want the distraction. I didn't drink, and I love wine. I didn't drink for those 2.5 years. I didn't go on holidays. Like I said, I was working every day of the week. And sure enough, when you put that amount of effort into anything over a period of 2.5 years, well, the chances are you're going to make it because you're going to figure out what you need to do, even if you are clueless to begin with, which I absolutely was. But just to give you one example of what I'm talking about, when I talk about the intensity or the level, the degree of grind that I put into my work, especially in those first 2.5 years, was how, in addition to my coaching clients paying £20 per session to begin with, right, and the initial consultations before they became clients, I don't know if you know this platform called Meetup. So I've used this platform called Meetup to create 3 groups. And in 2012 alone, so my first full year of coaching, I put together and delivered 200 talks in addition to the client work during the day. And that was my way to put myself out there, get prospective clients, and then eventually I started to charge for those talks a little bit to begin with, right? 2012 was the busiest year of my life, but also it was the happiest year of my life. I'm very happy now, like I have no major complaints, right? But 2012, because I knew I was building something, and interestingly enough, in retail towards the end, I'll be making between 30 and 35K a year. And in my first full year of coaching, I've made, so 2012, I've made exactly 34K. And I couldn't believe that I've made so much money, or like enough money to survive doing something that to this day doesn't feel like work. I was like, oh my fucking God, Jesus Christ, I've made what I've made in retail and I had so much fun. And I knew, unlike retail, that the 34K is just the beginning. Not that I necessarily, because I never made more money than that. So like 34K was like, that's what I was used to. And then sure enough, the following year, I hit 6-figure, and the rest is history. And yeah, speaking of reinventions, like to go from being a fashion retail manager and just standing there and just like, managing people basically, to coaching, people like something like, how did you go from retail to coaching? Because obviously they're so unrelated. But then I explained, retail wasn't, as I was saying before, it wasn't something I wanted to do. It was just something I did do to pay the bills, right? I've never been passionate about it, right? But obviously the change was colossal, because not only I was doing something completely unrelated, but also I went from employment and dealing with bosses. Some of them are great, but some of them were terrible, to working for myself and having a great time. And then sure enough, towards the end of that first full year, so a year into doing my coaching, I came across our friend Daniel Priestley, who became my first mentor, because up to that point I was very much walking in the dark, not knowing what the hell I was doing, bumping into furniture in a dark room. And then Daniel was like this light, right? And I thought, okay, I can learn from this guy. And this is 2012. So then he only had his first book written. Right now I've lost count of how many books, just like with yourself. You guys write more books than I read. You write quicker than I can read. And then obviously, on the back of, as you know, on the back of doing that business coaching program with Daniel, I got my book published with you, which has been great. There's absolutely no way I would ever write this book if it wasn't for Daniel, if he didn't make me. Because I don't like to write. Unlike you guys, I don't like to write. I don't mind short format on LinkedIn, but bloody hell, writing that book was such a pain. But you've made it as enjoyable as it possibly could be for someone who doesn't like to write. So I really appreciate that. I will never forget it, Lucy, because if it wasn't for Daniel and then how it was working with you, I mean, this book is not like, obviously it's some masterpiece or anything like that. But yeah, like I remember Daniel saying how this is going to become an extension of your business card. Think about it as an extension of your business card. And I thought, that makes sense to me. Now, he never said, write this book, you're going to make so much money from it, right? He's going to set you up for life. He never said that. Why? Because that's obviously not true. Why would he tell us lies? I think he might have said that you won't make any money from it. It's not about the money. It's about positioning yourself differently. And sure enough, as you would know, there are other coaches with books, but not many.
Looking at your book,
when they have a book, it's usually...
And your book is, in fact, your own reinvention story. And that's how you inspire, you tell that story, other people read it, and they want to come and work with you because you have reinvented yourself. You prove that it can be done. And that inspires them to come and work with you. I'm sure that's part of the power of your book.
Absolutely, because when I think about it, there's a very strong emphasis in my coaching, on my website, in the language that I use. I talk a lot about transformation. At this point of my career, not just now, but like for the last 10 years, let's say, I'm not interested in improving anyone's life. If you want your life to be improved, you don't need to spend or invest as much as working with me requires. Like, you can go somewhere else. You can go to someone like me when I used to charge £100 per session. I'm interested in transformations, and my ultimate goal is to radically transform your life, right? To your point, I think the fact that people understand, they read my story, they learn about like my past. Okay, he's transformed. So when he talks with confidence that he can help me transform as well, maybe I could trust it. Because there is this, like, he's been through that. Like, he didn't come from, right? He's not a trust fund baby who had a mate making his bed, when he was growing up, and everything was easy for him, right? No obstacles, no challenges, no hardship. Because then when I say, oh, well, I can help you, like, but what do you know about the process of transformation, right? So how could I not believe and speak with certainty about a possibility of one's transformation, given that I've transformed myself so dramatically, right? So when I talk about it, I don't just repeat catchphrases from the books I've read because, okay, that sounds good. But like, the difference between someone saying something because they read it versus someone saying the same thing from a place of experience, and how much more convincing the latter would be over the former.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reinventions that you've carried out are actually part of what you offer now to your coaching clients. And you now have your clientele is now about as upmarket as it possibly could be. So what kind of, give me an idea of what kind of people you now work with, rather different to the clients you had in Zara.
Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, so yes, I do work with a fair amount of high profile, if you will, clients. But at the same time, I have a fair share of clients who are like me when I was in my early 30s, when I was still finding myself and building something, right? So when I talk, or when I refer to myself, when I call myself a coach for the elite, by elite I mean elite mindset, elite attitude, because you see, that 22-year-old high school dropout on a bus to London for 27 hours, He was broke. He could barely speak English. And when I arrived, I looked like straight from the boat. Even though I didn't come on boat, I came on the bus, but I looked like straight from the boat. I had elite mindset already back then. It's so clear to me, right? Like, you know, my my mother, bless her, asked my girlfriend, the one I came to London with, not in front of me, but my girlfriend told me, or my mother told me afterwards, a few years later, I think, she said, and my mother loves me, I'm very close, right? But she said, because she was like, from a good family, that girl, and she had some money, like, I didn't, I think it was her money paid for those bus tickets, not my money, I didn't have any. So my mother was like, what do you see? Like in a kind of playful way, but she was like, what are you doing with this guy? Like, he's a high school dropout, and like I said, in Poland, education is everything. Like, what do you see in this guy? Like, I love him because he's my son, but look at you, like you're pretty, you like smart. Well, what the hell are you doing with this guy? And my girlfriend, because she was a badass, she said something, and she was, I was 22, she was 23, and she said to my mother, she said something like, no, he's gonna make it. Like the potential is there. Like I knew it, right? But like and we never talked about it, right? But she could smell it. She was smart enough to be like, surely this guy is going places. He like at 22, I had nothing, relatively speaking, like on a external level, if you will, but like internally, I was elite. Like I can see it clearly when I look back, right? So back to your question, yes, some of my clients, or many of my clients, are very, very accomplished already, but some of them are not yet. But they have that hunger and determination. And sure enough, in extreme cases, they sometimes take loans. And it's not my idea. I would never say to someone, hey, why don't you take a bank loan to work with me? I was like, this is what I can do for you. This is how much it's gonna cost in terms of investment. Take it or leave it, right? I don't come up with ideas. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not my style to ask people to put it on credit card. But sure enough, some of my clients, when they don't have enough money to work with me, they are determined enough, quote unquote, crazy enough to make it happen anyway. Which is
That's what you
exactly.
needed.
Exactly, and the how to become a key influence person program that I did, I didn't have. I think it was 6K plus VAT. I didn't have it, right? And I had a. Can't remember if you. No, Tom must have been there when you've become part of the company, or you joined like Daniel's operation, if you will. Tom, who used to run like sales conversations and all of that. So I remember having an initial consultation with him. It's like, okay, it's this, yeah, great. So it's gonna be like 6K plus VAT. I said, I don't have it. Okay, no problem. We can break it into installments of like 7 months, 7 installments. Okay, that's wonderful. If you could pay like 1,200 today to like, I don't have it. And then he goes, it was so nice. And then he said, okay, that's no problem, Michael. So how about like just half of it? So 600. So just to log that in, I don't have it. Like I physically didn't have, I've been coaching for a year already, but I didn't have, not on me, because he didn't ask for the cash, but I didn't have £600 to my name at that time, but I knew I had some invoices. I was expecting for the money to come in, and sure enough, I paid that 600 within the next few days, and the rest is history. I definitely got my ROI on that program long before the program finished. Because again, especially when you think about it, especially when you spend the money you don't have on something, you will make sure you'll get your ROI, right? Just like the few clients I know of, 3 or 4 that I know of, 4, I think, that I can think of, who took the loans to work with me, boy, they were committed. There wasn't like, sorry, Michael, I'm running 10 minutes late. Or can we finish early today? No. They took a fucking loan. They're serious. Like, sorry, what was that? It's very different when you think about it relative to a multi-millionaire who drops whatever, and that money, that's still a significant amount relative to his or her net worth. It's like pennies for me sometimes, right? Or like pounds. So I do enjoy working with my, if you ask, like, I don't, because I enjoy both. I'm judgmental, right? But I judge people based on the merit of the character, not based on what they do, how much money they have. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, if I like you, I like you. You can be broke. If I don't like you, I don't like you. You can be the richest person on the planet, right? It makes no difference to me.
So, Michael, finally, what would be your advice then to someone who feels the need or wants to radically reinvent themselves? Is it all about investing and believing in yourself?
Yeah, so that's not gonna surprise anyone when I say that the best investment you can make is to invest your time and energy and money as well, potentially, into personal development. And sure, you can read books, you can go to events, you can listen to podcasts like this one, but there is nothing out there that can be as powerful as working with someone one-to-one, right? And sure, if we were talking about Daniel, I couldn't even dream about doing it sooner. But when I got to the point where I could work with Daniel as my business coach one-to-one, that's exactly what I did, right? So like I could barely afford the group coaching program, as I was just explaining. But then sure enough, 3 years later, I moved to central London. I was making, comfortable income, and I've worked with Daniel one-to-one for a year, and that was great as well, as you can imagine. So yeah, the power of coaching, right? And whether it's the business that you want to grow, whether it's you that you want to transform, whether it's accents, either accent coach, I had so many different coaches for so many different things, right? So of course I'm a little bit biased, but yeah, when someone asks me a question like that, I have to answer it like, get a coach, invest into personal development, right? So depending on what your preference is, some people like to read, some people like to go to events, some people like to work with someone one-to-one. But if you look at personal development and how much you can get from different things personal development has to offer, nothing can replace in terms of how quickly you can expect the results. Nothing can replace one-to-one coaching, right? It's like, fitness would be an example as well, like how, yes, one can improve the fitness level from books or from Instagram influencers, fitness influencers. But then think about how much quicker we could get to our fitness goals if we had to have a personal trainer / nutritionist in our corner, right? So yeah, personal development / coaching is my official answer to your question.
Michael, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your reinvention story. It's been fascinating, and I really appreciate your time with us. Thank you so much.
Sure, Lucy, anytime. Thank you for having me.
Was my Phoenix conversation with Michael Serwa, coach to the elite and radical transformer of his own life and those of his clients. I published Michael's book, From Good to Amazing, No Bullshit Tips for the Life You Always Wanted, 12 years ago, which tells you his reinvention story and his coaching methodology. But it was brilliant to get an update from Michael in person in the latest phase of his brilliant career. Thanks again, Michael, for sharing your journey with us. If you enjoyed this episode, like and comment, and please subscribe to the podcast for more fantastic Phoenix conversations.